into it. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 5th annual Becoming a Terp Legacy series. This is our 3rd session of this series, and we are excited to have you all here joining us tonight. My name is Jessica Lee, and I am the Program Manager for Student Engagement at your Alumni Association. In my role, I aim to identify, cultivate, and train student alumni ambassadors for the university. In addition, I work closely with our legacy student programming to put on events for our prospective and current Terps, such as this Becoming a Terp Legacy series. The Alumni Association helps you to connect and stay involved with the Terp community and campus. We help alumni advance personally and professionally while improving the success of fellow Terps. We also help preserve Maryland tradition to boost your Terp pride and work to elevate the value of your degree, the reputation of your alma mater, and the greater good. The University of Maryland has over 40,000 students, 10,000 of which are graduate students. These graduate students study in 12 academic colleges, representing over 100 different master's programs, over 80 doctoral programs, and over 100 graduate certificate programs. Additionally, 48 of these programs are within the top 25 graduate programs, according to U.S. News and World Report. And over 40% of all of our graduate students hold an assistantship position on campus. So tonight, we will be hearing from Heather Kissinger, who's Program Manager for Admissions with the Graduate School. We hope that you will leave today's program with an understanding of how to apply to the University of Maryland graduate programs, including any major deadlines and tips to remember when completing your application. So before we begin tonight's presentation, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of housekeeping items. So as Heather is presenting, if you have any questions or any questions come up, please feel free to pose those questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. And following Heather's presentation, we'll be sure to answer any questions from the Q&A portion. So again, thank you all so much for being here. And without further ado, let's begin by welcoming Heather.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here and it's nice to chat with all of you. Like Jessica said, my name is Heather Kissinger and I am the Program Manager of Graduate Admissions in the Graduate School at University of Maryland. I've been in this role since January, but I've been working in graduate admissions with the university since 2016. So a quick rundown on what the graduate school is. The graduate school provides leadership, oversight, and policy for over 200 degree programs, graduate degree programs, including 83 doctoral programs at the University of Maryland. Actually, we might have 84 now. I'm not sure. So we are located on the 2nd floor of the Lee Building. Our mission is advancing graduate education and enhancing the graduate student experience. Some of the tasks that the graduate school undertakes are ensuring academic excellence by providing oversight for policies and standards, building robust research and educational programs, and academic support programs to ensure student success, and advocating for graduate education among key influencers and decision makers both on and off campus. For my role, I review applications that have been recommended to us by departments for admission, and then the final graduate school decision on any graduate application rests with the graduate school. So our basic requirements for applying for graduate programs are to hold a 4-year baccalaureate degree from a regionally accredited institution in the US, or the international equivalent, in which we're looking for national accreditation typically. Ensuring that we receive appropriate copies of transcripts and other credentials, a minimum of 3.0 on a 4-point scale or B or comparable, and then minimum specified English scores. And we'll talk a little bit more about the 2 middle points there. So one of the questions that we receive about the 3.0 GPA requirement is well, if I have a 2.7 or a 2.9 or a 2.6, am I just going to be automatically disqualified? And the answer to that is no, we don't automatically disqualify based on that. Programs do review all aspects of an application, and we engage in holistic review. So we're looking at the statement of purpose, the resume and prior employment and research experience, all sorts of factors. So one of the things that you could do if your GPA is below 3.0 is you could address why you felt that you struggled academically in your statement of purpose and how you feel you're better prepared for graduate studies. Then if an academic program wants to admit someone whose GPA is below 3.0, then they submit a justification letter to our office when they make the recommendation for admission, basically saying, you know, here are the reasons why we believe this person would succeed in a graduate program. So the first step in the application process is figuring out what you want to apply for. So as Jessica said, we have over 200 programs, and we have a graduate catalog, which is linked from our website, and that holds all of our graduate school policies, and it also shows information for each individual program. So as you can see on the screen here, and we can look at this a little bit more once we move into the demonstrative portion. So you can click on each individual program and take a look at the program overview, descriptions about what the program seeks to teach people, admissions information like deadlines, application upload requirements, etc. The content, structure, and objectives of the degree. I believe it actually has for each degree a course breakdown, information about faculty, and where to find more information, such as contact information for the program. Each individual program has their own website, which goes into more detail, and that's typically linked from the graduate catalog pages. And some programs also list facilities and special resources that are offered to their students. So some other useful graduate school admission sites. I find it easiest to direct people to our website aside from the catalog. So on our website, there's this page which we'll visit a little bit later. And it's called the admissions requirements page, and it lists all of our programs A to Z. And then there's another page that lists all of our programs organized by college or school. So if you're not entirely sure, you know, maybe your undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering, but you're not really sure, you know, if that's what you want to do for your grad, or if you might want to move into reliability engineering, for example, then you could go look at the schools divided, like sectioned off by the College of Engineering, and just look at those and compare between them. The admissions requirements pages show application deadlines and upload requirements. It's actually the same information that's in the graduate catalog, but sometimes with a little bit extra context that the program asks us to add. But it also helps to differentiate between graduate school upload requirements and department-specific upload requirements. And by that, you can see here, so there's certain requirements that the graduate school requires applicants to upload. And then there are program-specific requirements that might change from year to year. So for example, we're always going to require a statement of purpose or essay. We're always going to require transcripts from all post-secondary institutions. And then for applicants whose degree is not from an English-speaking country on our list, then we'll require TOEFL, IELTS, or PTE scores. As far as things like letters of recommendation, GMAT, GRE scores, those are items that each department opts into when they're setting up their application for that year. And those requirements might change from year to year. So some years they might have the GRE as a requirement. Other years they might decide to waive it. Other items that might be required depending on the program are writing samples, portfolios, particularly for some of the more design-focused programs, supplementary application forms, which might be a fillable PDF that you would provide certain information. And then some programs might require specific coursework, like a B average in macroeconomics, for example, or require a specific major. And we try to list those out whenever possible. But sometimes it's best to contact the department specifically about the program specific requirements. So for more details on graduate programs to help you decide between different programs, you can actually contact the programs directly. Each program has a program coordinator and a director of graduate studies. Typically, there's those two roles who work directly with incoming and current students. Some great questions to ask graduate programs directly are about program-specific admission requirements. You know, some programs might have a higher GPA requirement than that 3.0 graduate school baseline. So that's a good question to ask. Research opportunities and also faculty and their research interests. If you're going for a research degree, then questions about different labs and what they do are really great to ask programs. Coursework requirements, like I said, you can find that in the catalog, and then they'll usually often provide more information on the program's website as well. But you can dig in deep to figure out which program coursework structure really works best for you. And then whether the department offers funding. Funding at the graduate level typically is in the range of fellowships or assistantships. Fellowships are usually a research fellowship funding, and then an assistantship is kind of like a job that is related to your graduate degree, in which you would work 10 or 20 hours a week and then get tuition remission. So contact information for programs, you can find them in the catalog, you can find them in the graduate school admissions pages, and then also on the program's websites individually. So submitting your application, you do that entirely online. All aspects of the process are online. So you would create an account, and then you would fill out all pages and starred questions. You can upload documents into the application portal as requested. Some items you might actually end up submitting after you submit the application. So for example, test scores, you might order a set of GRE scores from ETS, but then they might take a few days to come in. So, so it's possible you might submit the application and then see the test scores come in later. The application portal will also tell you when the deadline is, but again, it's best to double check with the department. You can also submit separate applications to multiple programs. The system might have you finish and submit one application entirely before you start the next one, depending on the programs. And then the application fee for each application is $75. It is non-refundable. You can pay it by credit card or by e-check right there in the portal, and it must be paid before the application is submitted. So when you go to pay it, don't forget to then continue on to submit the application, because we've seen that a few times where someone paid for the application but then ended up not submitting it. All right, so a little bit more about how letters of recommendation work. So in the portal, what you would do is you would navigate to the page for recommendations in the portal. You would add your recommender's name, contact information, and then once you save it, the system actually sends them an email automatically, inviting them to log into their own special portal. And then they fill out the ratings and details. There's a rating system for items like maturity, motivation for the program of study, ability to work well with others, and various other aspects of recommendation. And then it allows them to upload a PDF recommendation letter. We do not accept recommendation letters sent from the applicant. Some applicants have asked us if we accept letters of recommendation through a third-party service, and that varies depending on the third-party service. So if you're in that situation, just send us an email and we'll take a look at that. Following submission of the application, actually I should say first, for anything you upload into the application will let you know if you're missing anything there. But you can check the status after submitting the application for any items that are missing that could come in after you submit it. For example, like we discussed, letters of recommendation or test scores. You can also check on the status of the application. So it will tell you if the application is under the departmental review. Some departments have a two-stage department review in which they have the primary or initial review and then the final program review, in case they have like staff members doing the first review and then faculty members doing the second, or however they structure it. And then once they make a recommendation to the graduate school, then it will say assigned to graduate school review. So as far as what happens on our side, on the graduate school side, or really on the university side, the first review is the academic program or department to which you're applying, like I said earlier, and then they make a recommendation to the graduate school, full admission or admission with conditions of enrollment. And then the second and final review is done by the graduate school, by me and my staff, to do the final check to make sure that everything meets all of our requirements, that we have full documentation of post-secondary studies, etc. And then the final formal decision letter comes from the graduate school in the portal. So once that's available, it'll send an email to you and say, hey, your decision letter's ready. Log into the portal and you can view it right there. As far as the review timeline, it really varies based on the departmental review, or if we're missing any documents that we need to request from you, etc. So any questions about review timelines are generally best directed to the department, unless your application says that it's currently under graduate school review. I think we have an average of 7 days once the department recommends the application for admission. So next steps after you're admitted, in the graduate school's decision letter, it's important to look at any conditions of enrollment. This could be for official transcripts to be submitted. So for example, in the application portal, you can upload scanned or unofficial transcripts and we'll review those, but then we would request the official ones to be submitted during the first semester. So that would be an example of a condition of enrollment. In some situations, our office or the department could add a GPA requirement, earn a 3.0 in the first semester or in the first and second semesters. And then some departments might add department-specific conditions. These are usually accompanied by a separate letter from the department. For example, I've seen some departments requesting certain test scores to be submitted during the first semester, or for the student to take and pass certain courses during the first semester. In the decision letter, there's also a link to our new student checklist, which you can also find from the graduate school website. And that includes really important and helpful items, such as how to create a directory ID. Although I think most of the people in this presentation have already received degrees from Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. So you would actually probably already have a directory ID and then just restart it back up. How to submit immunization forms to the health center, how to register for classes, etc. You can also accept or reject the offer of admission right there in the portal, or you can request a deferral, which is always subject to department and graduate school approval. Some departments don't accept deferrals, so it's a good idea to talk to the department first if that's your plan. And then after that, departments generally reach out to their admitted students about registering for courses. Some departments might offer listservs telling you what's going on campus in that department, or they might even have like a Facebook group of newly admitted students in a particular cohort, etc. So if you're not sure, you can always reach out to the program coordinator of the department. And that wraps up my presentation part. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know. If not, I'd be happy to show you what the process is like to actually go into the application portal and create an application.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. So it looks like we do have a couple of questions, so I'll just go ahead and read those out loud. So our first question, and I can kind of answer this as well. So is this presentation / process different for a student who doesn't attend Maryland? So the intent of this presentation was mostly for those alums who have actually already received a degree from Maryland, at least a bachelor's degree. But if I'm not mistaken, Heather, I think the process is still the same in terms of applying to the graduate school. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, the process is essentially the same. The main differences that I could foresee are with someone who earned their bachelor's or their master's from Maryland, we can actually look up that transcript in our student system. And so that's probably the main difference. If someone is applying and has only earned degrees from outside the country, then there's a possibility that they might need to submit TOEFL scores or other documentation. Like, for example, let's say that you have a bachelor's of engineering from India, then we would also require a scan of the degree certificate. And different countries have different documents that they issue for their degrees. So it might vary by country what we're looking for. But otherwise, it's roughly the same process. You submit the application, it's reviewed first by the department, then by the graduate school, and then decisions.
Great, thank you. Okay, so lots of questions in the chat. I'm going to try to just go through them as they come in. So the next question that we have here, what is the percentage of applicants who get accepted into the graduate school? And what percentage of Maryland alums get accepted too?
That's a good question. If I'm being honest with you, I actually don't have those numbers on me. What I would recommend is actually reaching out to the department. Usually departments keep that information on a program by program basis, but I apologize that I don't have the numbers for the full university-wide figures. So.
Thank you. Another question. So the directory ID would only apply if an individual was accepted, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, unless you're applying as an employee at University of Maryland. If you're an employee, you have a directory ID. But yeah, for logging into the application portal, you would create a username and password instead of using a directory ID and password. And then once you're accepted, there's an activation code that appears after you accept the offer of admission, and you can use that activation code to create the directory ID. But yeah, it's just for accepted students.
Great. So if I choose to get a certificate, could I use those courses towards a master's degree if I choose to if I would like to get a master's degree later? So
that's called an inclusion of credit. Yeah, you can petition for an inclusion of credit. Anytime that you're either transferring credit in from an external institution or including credit that you've already taken at University of Maryland, that is a petition process. I know for external transfers, there's a maximum of 6 credits that you can transfer in. And also, if you're applying as a non-degree seeking student, which is another thing that I was going to talk about during our demonstration, if you're applying as a non-degree seeking student, I believe that you can petition for up to 9 credits to be included. I don't think there's a credit limit for if you do a graduate certificate at Maryland and then roll it into a master's. But admittedly, I don't work with petitions since they're current student items. So it would be best to email the graduate school if you have questions about the maximums. But yes, it's a petition that you can fill out once you're admitted into a master's program.
So another question. So I understand that some grad programs have entirely separate facilities to themselves that are off the main campus. So for example, the economics department has a campus in DC. So would admissions go to separate forms, or would it be one application for the program and then it's decided where the classes are taken?
So specifically for economics, applied economics, you either apply to the campus program or the off-campus program. It's not like you would switch back and forth between them. Those two programs also run on different calendars. So there's the semester-based calendar, which is your typical fall, spring semesters. And then that's what the applied economics program on campus runs on. But then the DC program, that runs on the 12-week term calendar. And so it's not really possible to switch back and forth between the two. You just apply to one or the other.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit more about the GRE process?
Yeah, so the graduate school itself doesn't require GREs. GREs are a program-specific requirement. So it's generally best to reach out to the individual department to determine what their minimum GRE requirements are. If they're looking more for maybe more for the verbal or the analytical writing or the quantitative. But basically with the GRE, you sign up with ETS to go take the exam. You can either choose to share your scores with University of Maryland. We have our code on the website, but it's 5814. You can either choose to share the scores on the day of your test, or you can wait till you get your test scores and then make the order for the GRE scores to be sent electronically from ETS. ETS then puts them into a download portal that we retrieve from, I think it's twice a week or something like that. And then we match them up based on your date of birth and your name.
What percentage of graduate school, not doctoral candidates, students have full-time jobs, and what resources are there for graduate students that work full-time jobs?
That's a good question. That's also one that unfortunately I'm not really sure. I would say that's a good question to reach out to the departments directly, because resources for students on that kind of level are probably going to be department to department. I do know that there are a whole host of part-time programs that you can apply to. And then some programs aren't specifically coded as part-time, but might let you study part-time anyway. So that's a good question to ask the departments if they allow part-time studies. You can also get an idea of when the courses are generally offered by looking on Testudo. So if you have like the list of courses for this particular master's degree, you could look at them and see, okay, so these courses are typically offered in the evening, after 4:30 p.m. Or this course is generally, more of a morning course. Typically, graduate courses are mostly, at least in my experience, in the evening, but it really varies from department to department.
Could you elaborate more on what some examples of the letter of recommendation requirement would be?
Yeah, so This is another good question to check with the department, because some departments might have specifically requirements for a certain number of the letters to be from professors, or for some of the more professionally focused programs, they might want to be specifically hearing from an employer or a supervisor. Particularly so, and the number of recommendations varies from department to department, but a lot of times you generally want to ask people who are really familiar with your aptitude and your academic work, but again, it's really best to contact the departments, because they're the ones who are looking at those in the most detail.
And I think this question is also probably varies by department, but what is an example of a writing sample?
Sure. So a writing sample is usually a piece of academic writing. They might specify a page count. So when I applied to my master's program at University of Maryland, there was a requirement of at least 10 pages, and it was required to be a paper that I had written in an upper level class. Departments, if they are requiring a writing sample, can usually elaborate more. Some have a minimum page count or word count, and then others might have a maximum. It really varies by department.
Another question. If I'm living out of state temporarily for a job, but am planning to move back home to Maryland where I live permanently, can I still qualify for in-state tuition?
So we actually have an office specifically for residency classification. And how it works in the graduate education is there is a section for Maryland residency that you can fill out and put details in. But in our office, we're actually not making residency decisions per se. We have an algorithm that was set up by residency classification. And so your information is filtered through that algorithm, and then it puts a response out in state or out of state. And if it gives you out of state, but you believe that you should be in state, you can contact residency reclassification and get more information on if they could reevaluate it, what documentation that they would need, etc. The one thing that I do want to warn you about is if they make any updates, it's not going to update in the decision letter, just in our internal systems. But residency classification, I believe their email address is resclass, RESCLASS @umd.edu. And I find that contacting them by email is best. Particularly, they receive a lot of inquiries towards the start of each semester. So you might get a faster response if you contact them mid-semester or end of each semester.
Another question, can you talk more about applying for graduate assistant positions and how to get them? Thanks.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yep. So there's really two ways that you can get a graduate assistantship. The first is if the department just offers them, and the second way is to actually apply for them. So when you apply, there's a question on the application that some departments use and some departments don't, where it says, do you want to be considered for a graduate assistantship? And if you put yes, then the departments that use that question will consider you. And if you put no, then they'll assume that you're self-funded. Again, some departments don't use that, like the departments that don't provide funding, or departments that are just going to make assistantship offers to whoever they want. But a lot of times what will happen is that you'll receive a letter from the department before you're even admitted, and they'll say, hey, we've recommended you for admission to the graduate school, and we'd love to offer you this teaching assistantship, and then get your feedback from there. There are three types of assistantships broadly. There's research assistantships, teaching assistantships, and then administrative assistantships. A lot of the administrative assistantships you can actually find on the Human Resources website. So if you go to ejobs.umd.edu, then there'll be faculty, staff, a third one I don't remember, and then graduate assistants. And so you can click on that and look through the various ones. Not all assistantships show up on there, so it's also a good idea to occasionally check the websites of departments that you think you particularly want to work for. I think I've seen assistantships from engineering and the English department that they listed on their website, but not on eJobs. So asking around is also a good idea to get an idea of, okay, I want to work in this office. I know they hire graduate assistants. Do they advertise on eJobs or in some other way?
And are certifications such as rate school and academic publications included in the holistic factor list?
I'm not familiar with those. So I'm not sure. That might be a department to department thing. I apologize. I've just never heard of those.
And I think those are all the questions that I see in our Q&A and or chat features. Heather, I don't know if you wanted to quickly do a demo just for the website. And if any questions come in there, we can address those as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me get out of this PowerPoint. And so this is the graduate school website. They are working on a redesign, but I'm not sure when it's going to go through. But so if this all changes, you know, don't be shocked. Someone will be able to help guide you through it. Going to the admissions tab is generally where I recommend that people start. There's some more information on Maryland, on the application process. These two tabs are the ones I was talking about earlier. So we've got the list of programs A to Z. It's a list of programs A to Z. And then, yeah, you can find all of our programs that we're currently recruiting for here. You can also find these divided up by college or school. So like, let's say, you know, I want to do public health, but I'm not really sure which program I want to go into. Then you can look at these. Public health, actually, this is a really good thing to bring up. So public health has a bit of a different application structure where first you apply through Sophus. That's an external company. And then once you've submitted the Sophus application, then they send you an invite to fill out the University of Maryland main application. I probably should have brought that up in the other PowerPoint, but in any case, the STARred programs are the ones that require a Sophus application, and they're really good about walking you through the whole process. If you reach out to public health, they're very descriptive about the Sophus deadline versus the graduate school application deadline. But let's just pick a program to look at. So you can find some sort of basic information here, which school it's in. Is it an MA, an MS, an MEd? This one's an MS. These general requirements, those are graduate school specific. These are going to appear on every single page. And then the program specific requirements are here. So like you can see for the writing sample, they're saying 1 required, but you can submit up to 2 more optional. They only recruit for the fall semester, so there's no spring admissions for this one. And you can see that the domestic and international deadline is the same. And then there's a link to their department here. And so you can go and, you know, look at their request information or their frequently asked questions, or like look at the different career paths that you can do. And there's a wealth of information on most program websites. The catalog itself is kind of hidden here under policies. So you can go to the graduate catalog and you can look at all our programs here. The caveat with the graduate catalog is that it lists every program, even if they're not every program that someone is currently enrolled in, even if they're not actively recruiting. So that's an important thing to bear in mind with the differences between the two. But you can see that they have a description about the program, some information about financial assistance, fellowships, assistantships, and then contact information. And then on the admissions tab, you can see there's generally the same kind of format. There might be some additional information that the department decided to add here. Requirements, so you can see the coursework requirements for this program. I'm not sure if this is maintained by the department or the graduate school or both, but there it is. Facilities and special resources. Not all programs have this tab. It kind of depends on the program. So like here, they're talking about a computer lab. And then faculty members. Generally, websites tend to list more information on labs and research opportunities, but this is a good place to start. So let's go back to grad school. So to find the application system itself, it's kind of a little bit of a challenge. So you click this Apply Now button. This takes you to the step-by-step guide to applying. And so we described the SOFA's situation here. And then under step 1, complete online application, you're looking for this little tiny link right here for Terp Engage. And that brings you to this nice aerial view of campus. And so you can create an account. I've got a nice fake email up here that I can create. So let's just say test account. Date of birth, let's just say January 1st, 1990, just for fun. And then what did I have here? umdgradapp490@gmail.com. And so they're going to ask you for level of study here. You can just put whatever here. You can change it if you need to. So let's say we're thinking about a master's and we're maybe thinking about community planning, and we'll create our account. Email and what? Okay. It catches you, right? If you make an error, it'll catch you. So we'll create the account. It does its little thinking wheel, and it sends you an email to activate the account. It's usually fairly quick, but we'll find out. I just created this email address today. So I'm actually going to close that out. This is the fun part. The waiting is the hardest part. Well, while we're waiting for that, let me show you a little bit more about applying as a non-degree seeking student. So you can apply to just take graduate courses without pursuing a graduate degree, and that's called non-degree seeking student. Visiting graduate student is a separate thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in order to qualify as a non-degree seeking student, you have to hold a baccalaureate from a regionally accredited U.S. institution or international equivalent, submit a short personal statement just saying, oh, I'm interested in taking courses in the studio art program, and then fulfill one of the following: a 3.0 on a 4-point scale, or if you have a master's, doctoral, other post-baccalaureate professional degree, that's a thing that you could upload as well. Having a score that places you in the upper 50th percentile of all sections, that's important to bear in mind. Or if none of that, then you can provide a letter of support from the graduate director of the program saying, hey, this person is interested in taking courses with us. We're fine with them doing that. You can submit the online application. I'll show you where to find how to select the program, pay the non-refundable $75 application fee. And then there's some deadline information here depending on what term or semester you're applying for. So sometimes people will apply as non-degree seeking students if they just want to take a course or two for fun, or if they are thinking about going back for a master's but aren't really sure and just kind of want to dip their toes in the water. Or sometimes people might have professional certifications that they need to take extra courses for, but they don't want to have to deal with going through a whole application process for a program. Visiting graduate student, this is, I need to update that. This is if you are currently matriculated in another graduate program in another institution, and you just want to enroll in a couple of courses at University of Maryland to transfer back to that program. And in that case, you don't have to submit transcripts, letters of recommendations, whatever. Actually, you don't need letters of recommendations for this either. You just submit a letter from the graduate dean at your home institution, and then a letter from the University of Maryland department. So let's see if we have received this yet. Not yet. Okay. Let me just log in using my I think I can just log in with my directory ID. It should look pretty much the same. I'll just do my duo here. So once you're logged into the application portal, I have one here because I was testing out public policy. The basic format is you can view, if you have multiple applications, you can view those up here, and they'll list them all here and give you a status on them. Status right now is complete your application because I haven't submitted this one. There would normally be a new application button here, but because I've already begun one, then I would just hit continue application. And then the format is in this center part is the main body of each text or of each page. And then along here, you can navigate to different pages. So like, let's say educational intent. Let's say that, you know, I started this application thinking I wanted to do a master's, but maybe now I want to just do a non-degree. So then, okay, I can select that. I'm not a current student elsewhere, so I'm just going to select non-degree again, and it'll have me enter the term. Fall 22. Okay, the deadline is first day of classes for non-degree seeking student. Degree program deadlines are, of course, much earlier. And if you're applying as a non-degree in summer or winter, then it's going to be earlier. As you can see, it's not going to let you submit for summer 2 because summer 2 is already passed. So that deadline was July 1st. But let's say I want to apply for fall 23. Then it'll have me select which of the options. You remember those options that I was talking about earlier? So let's just say the average, save and continue. And you can navigate to each of these pages. They don't have to be in order. So during my test application, I filled out a bunch of the pages, but you know, I can skip right to program upload requirements. There's not going to be a lot of them because it's non-degree. It is going to require the statement of purpose. You see this red line here, that means it's required. Although actually, I think for these, it's not enforced, it's optional. But you can upload any required documentations. At the end, when you're ready to submit your application, anything that it requires you to upload before submitting, it'll give you a warning here saying, hey, we haven't received your transcript for your master's that you completed in 2016. Go back and upload that, and it'll let you know where to do that. So yeah, that's the application system in a nutshell. And I think we have another question in chat.
Yes, so I can go ahead and read that. So essentially, even though the grad grad degree admission, minimum GPA requirement is 3.0 for undergrad. You had mentioned someone with a slightly lower GPA may still be considered for admission with supporting documents. So if someone has like a significantly lower GPA, maybe closer to like a 2.3, would they still be considered, just trying to be realistic during the process and determine if a low GPA will rule out candidacy?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really kind of depends on the specific department. Some departments will consider that and write a really strong justification letter. Other departments will say, well, no, we have a 3.3 requirement. You know, you could, I think if you've got a GPA like 2.3, it's really even more important to put something in the statement of purpose addressing why you felt you struggled academically. You know, whether it was something like you didn't have a lot of family support at home, or you were in a major that you just really weren't interested in, but now know exactly what you want to do. Or sometimes people also just don't have as much focus or have really, really tragic or difficult life circumstances. We've had people whose family members have passed away right in the middle of a semester. So I think really discussing that and discussing why, like the reasons that you feel that you're more prepared for academic study is really important. It's sort of a two-part process because the department is reviewing it first. And so it's really up to them if they write a justification letter or if they just, you know, say, you know, the fit isn't right or something like that. But we've had departments who wrote justification letters, you know, saying that they really wanted the student. So it's a good idea to get in touch with the department and get, like, just give them details on you know, your academic history and your work history after graduating and items like that. But it really is a case-by-case basis.
All right, I think those are all the questions in the chat. Someone did ask where folks can find this recording, and so I can go ahead and answer that one. So we will be sharing these, the recordings from all of the sessions of the series with anyone who had attended and or registered for the event. It may take a little bit of time just because we have to upload them and kind of edit a little bit. And so at least the front and the back ends. So we should be getting those out in the next week or so, but you should be getting that via email. And so hopefully that answers that portion. And I believe that pretty much wraps up tonight's session. So thank you so much, Heather. That concludes tonight's event. And so thank you all so much for attending. I did want to mention that we have one more session in our Becoming a Terp Legacy series, which is focused more so on undergraduate programs. So not sure if anyone on this call is specifically looking at undergraduate programs as well. That is tomorrow evening, which will feature our many different academic colleges. And to go ahead and learn more about that session and to register, you can visit our website, and I will post the link in the chat. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and go Terps.